What's going on, guys? Thanks for watching. Keep calm and game on. In today's episode, we are reacting to the live press briefing that is happening soon. This is from live news from Fox. I will post the link to that in the chat. Give me 1 second here. If you guys want to watch it for yourself without my commentary, live feed. I will post that in the chat and pin it for you guys. Go drop them a subscribe if you're watching. Pin message. There we go. We're just waiting for the White House to start. Not exactly sure when it's going to start, but here we are. Here we are. As always, if you're watching this live, feel free to drop some comments down below. Greatly appreciated. We enjoy hearing your guys' comments and feedback. Got my Trump hat on. So, yeah. I should have got some water, though. Maybe I'll grab some water, too. Yes, I am sitting in my kitchen. A lot of dishes back there I need to wash. But instead, I am watching press briefings. Because why not? Why not? So, let's pull that back up. Let me pull this back up. There we go. All right, cool beans, cool beans. Looks like they're still setting stuff up, focusing the cameras. It says soon. I see some people walking. People getting their microphones set up and ready. This is the live feed from Live Now from Fox. Our connection is going good. Looks like it. It's very rare that I get to watch these live. I always have to watch the past broadcasts, so this is kind of cool that we get to watch live. There's Peter Ducey. I see Peter Ducey over there. Good old Peter Ducey. Yeah, it looks like they're still setting up the cameras and stuff. All right. Excuse me. Okay, here she comes. Looks like here we are.
Good afternoon. Happy Monday. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Let me know how the audio
I see
sounds,
a lot
guys.
of us are very festive.
The microphone's a little loud.
I like it. First today, I want to address the devastating tornadoes and storms that have impacted many states throughout the South and the Midwest.
There's a little bit of an echo,
As of
too.
this morning, more than 40 innocent lives have been lost, and many communities have been totally destroyed.
That's better.
The president has been actively
Well, kind of.
monitoring the situation, and the Trump administration is engaged with governors.
Fox News, get your act together.
To restore affected.
You got a little bit of an echo going here.
Everyone impacted is in our prayers, and President Trump is fully prepared to assist state and local officials as they recover from the horrific damage.
Let me see if I can find a better broadcast for you guys.
Very busy weekend, making our country and the world a much safer place. President Trump ordered decisive military action against the Houthi terrorists in Yemen. These Houthi terrorists have engaged in piracy, violence, and terrorism against American. Joe Biden's pathetic weakness invited these unacceptable attacks. But there's a new sheriff in town, and his name is Donald Trump.
Here we go. Here we
The
go.
world is officially on notice. America has
This
a
one's better.
commander-in-chief
This one's from
whose peace
the
through
White
strength
House
approach
itself.
is unwavering and should not be tested. As the president said, no terrorist force will stop American commercial and naval vessels
There
from
we go. 1
freely
second.
sailing throughout the world. Houthi
There we go.
terrorists and their Iranian
Yeah, this one's much better.
not cross President Trump again, and the president has made that clear today. On another important matter, President Trump signed a proclamation invoking the Alien Enemies Act regarding the invasion of the United States by the foreign terrorist organization Tren de Aragua. At the president's direction, the Department of Homeland Security carried out a counter-terrorism operation.
I'm going to pin that in the chat if you guys want to watch it without my commentary.
Which will save countless American lives. Thanks to the great work of the Department of State, these heinous monsters were extracted and removed to El Salvador, where they will no longer be able to pose any threats to the American public.
Did you watch that El Salvador transfer? That was crazy.
Gangs in the world, and they are responsible for some of the most heinous crimes that have occurred in our nation's history in recent years, including the savage murders of beautiful Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungray. President Trump promised Laken and Jocelyn's families during his campaign that he would demand justice for their beautiful girls, and that's exactly what he did. As the president acknowledged during his inaugural address on January 20th, he pledged to invoke this act, and he has no higher responsibility than to defend our country from
Gotta defend the country, boys. We're getting the criminals out of here.
His historic efforts
That's what I voted for. To break the law, you shouldn't be able to stay in the country.
As the New York Times is acknowledged over the weekend, President Trump's policies are working. Here's how the Times summed it up.
This is happening live for those of you wondering.
At the U.S.-Mexico border are down to their lowest level in decades. Once crowded
lowest level, baby. Lowest level. Here we go.
Instead of heading north, people stranded in Mexico are starting to return home in bigger numbers. The border is almost unrecognizable from just a couple of years ago, when hundreds of thousands of people from around the world were crossing into the United States every month in scenes of chaos and upheaval. This is the Trump effect in action. And again, those are the words from the New York Times. We didn't need a border security bill. We just needed President Trump. All of these actions taken together are contributing to a wave of optimism about the direction of our great country. According to brand new polling from NBC News, more registered voters say the United States is heading in the right direction than at any point since early 2004. Americans support President Trump's common
What do you guys think?
approach that's getting our country
You think Trump's doing a good
back
job?
on track in record time. Meanwhile, the president's critics can't say the same. That same new NBC poll also found that the Democrat Party has reached an all-time low in popularity. It turns out when you let your hatred of President Trump get in the way of doing what is best
Democrats
for
are
America,
not doing well
the
right now.
people reject you.
They are not doing well.
Joining us today in our new media seat is Kelly Meyer. She is a White House correspondent with News Nation. News Nation started in 2021 and is one of America's fastest growing cable news networks.
I also like how they're bringing like smaller news outlets and stuff into the briefing room, whereas before they just kind of relied on the mainstream, like the biggest ones, but now they're bringing like, you know, more independent news media and journalists in. So I think that's really good.
With that, kick us off, please, Kelly.
Thank you, Caroline. What do you say to Americans who want safe streets but are concerned due process is being violated?
The president is using every lever of his executive authority,
every lever,
constitutional authority within
pulling every lever,
immigration laws of our country to ensure that our streets are safer for law-abiding.
I feel safer
citizens.
under Trump. I don't know about you guys. I don't know about you.
Arresting and deporting illegal criminal aliens. And as you saw this past weekend, the president used his authority under the Alien Enemies Act to deport foreign terrorists. Tren de Aragua is now a designated foreign terrorist organization.
Designated
and as I said,
foreign terrorist group.
Tren de Aragua members who were sent to El Salvador.
Well, Biden was just like, "Come on in, come on in, guys." Not during Trump.
Talk to the families, the angel families, as I mentioned, Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungray. They understand the grave cost of life at the hands of these illegal terrorists, and the president is proud to deliver on that promise for them.
And just to follow up on that, this will be challenged later today in the courts. Does the president, does this allow him to defy the court order without having this the checks and balances and the separation of power?
No, in fact, this administration acted within the confines of the law, again, within the president's constitutional authority and under the authority granted to him under the Alien Enemies Act. We are quite confident in that, and we are wholly confident that
It's
we are
crazy
going to
how
win this
some
case
judges
forward.
want to bring all those criminals
If you guys can't
back.
send 200 Tren de Aragua terrorists
Why?
at a time to El Salvador, where are you going to send them instead?
It's a very good question. You'd have to ask the courts and the people on the left who are trying to fight this administration for doing the business that this president sought out to do, which is to deport these foreign terrorists. And we're very grateful to President Bukele and to El Salvador for accepting these heinous monsters where they will face justice.
And if these guys are terrorists at war with the United States, is President Trump considering anything more lethal to address them than just sticking them on a plane somewhere else?
Well, it sounded like you had a little bit of curiosity in the premise of your question, so I want to address it. These are designated foreign terrorists. The president signed a proclamation on February 20th, 2025, designating TDA as a foreign terrorist organization that
Tren de
was in
Aragua,
consultation with the
you
Attorney
are
General and
a
the
foreign
Secretary of
terrorist
Treasury.
organization now.
That was pursuant to
Sorry.
8 U.S. Code 1189.
Shouldn't have came in
The
making
president
trouble.
has the right to do that, and I think nobody would argue that Tren de Aragua should be designated a
There's some
foreign
judges
terrorist
that would argue
organization.
they
If you
shouldn't
wanna
be
have that
terrorists.
argument,
There's
I'm
some
happy
judges
to
that
do
want
it.
them to
These
come
are
back.
heinous monsters, rapists,
Bunch of judges that are
murderers,
morons.
kidnappers, sexual assaulters, predators who have no right to be in this country.
What do you guys
and they
think?
must
Post
be
some
held
comments in the
accountable.
comment section. I'll read them
Something
live.
different. There is now a member of the European Parliament from France who does not think the U.S. represents the values of the Statue of Liberty anymore. They want the Statue of Liberty back. So is President Trump going to send the Statue of Liberty back to France?
Absolutely not. And my advice to that unnamed low-level French politician would be to remind them that it's only because of the United States of America that the French are not speaking German right now. So they should be very grateful to our great
Bam!
country.
Dropping the
Kelly.
mic.
Is the administration prepared to give the court what it wants in terms of the time of the flights that departed, that went to El Salvador, and some of those details that the judge is asking for in trying to determine the timing? Clearly, the 5 named individuals were not deported
That's
in
right.
compliance. But looking more broadly, wanting to know about... the
That is a
time
lot of
flights
reporters,
and so
guys.
forth, because the verbal order did say...
I would not want her job. I would not want Caroline's job.
I'm prepared to provide it right now. All of the planes that were subject to the written order, the judge's written order, took off before the order was entered in the courtroom on Saturday. And the administration will, of course, be happily answering all of those questions that the judge poses in court later today.
And for people who have due process questions about making certain that there wasn't anyone who was swept up who did
Also,
not
guys,
get
in the chat, I
deported,
started a poll. I asked the question, do you
there,
think
a way
Trump
for
is
the
keeping his
administration to
promises?
provide more
You can
detail
vote yes or
about
no on that.
how that was determined, who the
Let me know in the
individuals were
chat.
that met, this,
Is Trump keeping his promises? I think he is.
Yes, I can
I
assure
think
the
he's doing
American
exactly
people
what
that,
he said he
Customs
was
and
gonna
Border
do,
Patrol
and that's why
ICE
he
and the
won.
Department of Homeland Security are sure about
Won
the
by a
identities of
landslide.
the individuals who were on these planes and the threat that they pose to our homeland. They take this incredibly seriously. They are putting their lives on the line to deport these designated terrorists from our country, and they should be trusted to do that. And that's exactly what the American people elected this president to do.
Thanks, Carol.
See?
Just
True,
to
true.
follow up on that, then, so you're saying definitively, that the administration can prove everyone that was put on those flights to El Salvador was either a member of Tren de Aragua, MS-13, or some other
Yeah,
entity?
we've already provided the breakdown in the effort of transparency about the 261 illegal aliens who were deported. 137 of those were deported under the Alien Enemies Act. 101 of those were Venezuelans removed via Title VIII, which, as you know, are just regular immigration proceedings.
Plus, that also sends a
And
message to other
23 of
people
them
trying
were
to come into our
MS-13
country
Salvadorian
and do
gang
bad,
members.
shady
There were
things.
also
Like,
2
don't come.
MS-13
If you come here and we
ringleaders
catch
as
you,
part of that
you're
group
gonna
of
get shipped up
23 who
to,
President Bukele
a very-
particularly expressed his
a
gratitude
prison that
for their
doesn't have a lot of
return so he
luxury,
can demand
if you know what I
justice in
mean.
his home country.
I don't think the
Jennifer.
beds even have mattresses. You're just sleeping on
Other than,
a metal
say,
slab
tattoos
with like
or
80 other inmates
maybe
in the
being
same
wrong
cell.
place at the wrong time, are they using to determine that someone is actually a member of one of these organizations?
intelligence and the men and women on the ground in the interior of our country who are finally being allowed to do their jobs. Their hands were tied under the previous administration, and as I said, they take their jobs very seriously. They should be trusted and respected by the American public.
See, here's the thing. We wouldn't have had to catch all these people that are breaking all these laws if Biden hadn't let them into the country.
The questions that the court poses. Jennifer.
One more follow-up on
But he did, so now we got to fix his mess. We got to clean up the mess that Biden left.
Prison these Venezuelans, and then a different question on Russia. I was wondering if you could give us an update on the ceasefire negotiations, and is there anything you can share on the list that Putin passed along to President Trump for the things he's requesting?
Sure. To your first question, it was approximately $6 million to El Salvador for the detention of these foreign terrorists. And I would point out that is pennies on the dollar in comparison to the cost of life and the cost it would impose on the American taxpayer to house these terrorists in maximum security prisons here in the United States of America. And I would echo the message of our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who expressed his gratitude to President Bukele and El Salvador's government for their cooperation.
So if you don't want to get shipped to El Salvador,
El
Salvador, then
on Air Force One on his
don't
return from
come
his very,
into our country
busy
illegally
weekend
doing
in Florida,
bad things.
That he will be speaking to President Putin tomorrow. I
Don't
won't
do
get
it.
ahead of those negotiations, but I can say we are on the 10th yard line of peace, and we've never been closer to a peace
Biden did a
deal
lot
than
of
we are
talking.
in this
Well, not
moment.
him
And the
himself,
president,
like
as
his
you
press
know,
secretary did a lot of
is
talking, but
determined
Biden never
to get
actually
one
did
done.
anything except
Sure.
basically welcome all these people into our country.
But first on the president's post overnight, saying that he is the
And now Trump's fixing the problem.
President Biden preemptively to members of the January 6th committee that they're now null and void. Have attorneys here at the White House told President Trump that he has the legal authority to undo a pardon simply because it was signed by auto pen, as he said?
The president was begging the question that I think a lot of journalists in this room should be asking about whether or not the former president of the United States, who I think we can all finally agree was cognitively impaired. I know it took people some time to finally admit that, but
Yes.
we all know that to be true, as evidenced by his disastrous
But he was sharp as a
debate
tack
performance
behind closed
against
doors.
President
Yeah,
Trump
okay.
during the campaign. I digress on that.
If Biden was
But the
sharp as a
president was
tack,
raising the
then
point
that means
did the president
Trump is like
even know
Albert
about
Einstein
these
times
pardons?
10.
Was his legal signature used without his consent or knowledge? And that's not just the president or me raising those questions, Caitlin. According to the New York Post, there are Biden officials from the previous White House who raised those questions and wondered if the president was even consulted about his legally binding signature being signed onto documents. And so I think it's a question that everybody in this room should be looking into, because certainly that would propose perhaps criminal or illegal behavior if staff members were
Thank you for the
signing
like, guys, whoever that was
President
from.
of the United States
Can we get
autograph
20 likes
without
on
his
this video?
consent.
Hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying the stream.
Issuing preemptive pardons to these people.
But was he aware of his signature being used on every single pardon? That's a question you should ask the Biden
Is
White
there any
House.
evidence on that he wasn't aware of it?
You're a reporter. You should find out.
Okay,
Sean.
on the flights, so I have
Oh.
the timeline of the flights. You keep talking about the judge's written order, which hit the docket Saturday night at about 7:26 p.m. But he issued a verbal order before that at about 6:45 and 6:48 p.m. based on the court hearing. A verbal order from the bench. Does the White House feel the need to comply with a verbal order from this judge?
Again, as I said, all of the planes subject to the written order of this judge departed U.S. soil, U.S. territory before the judge's written order.
But what about the verbal order, which of course carries the same legal weight as a written order, and said for the planes to turn around if they were
Well,
in the air?
there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order, as a written order, and our lawyers are determined to ask and answer those questions in court. Sean.
Hey, so on Friday,
Democrats are upset that we're
suggested
sending
that it should be
out
illegal to criticize
people that are
Putin.
killing other
But he
people.
has
We're sending
repeatedly
criminals
said
out of our
that
country,
he's
and they're upset
Elon
about this.
Musk is calling for impeachment of
This is
judges
why the
and
Democrats
avoiding
didn't win the
administration.
election,
So, how are those two things not in conflict?
because
I
they don't
not
have
heard
any
the
common
president
sense.
talk about impeaching judges. I know you
Some of them
mentioned
might,
Mr. Musk's tweet,
but there's
I
a lot
have
of
not heard the president
left-wing
of the United States
crazies
ask that.
out there
Mary.
Hey, thanks
that
for
think
joining us.
we should just keep all these criminals in our country.
This morning set to the tune of,
Nah.
I believe, closing time about deportations of illegal migrants. What's the strategy behind the White House's videos they've been putting out on this, and can you kind of talk us through the thinking on these videos?
Sure. I think the White House and our entire government clearly is leaning into the message of this president. And we are unafraid to double down and to take responsibility and ownership of the serious decisions that are being made. The president was elected with an overwhelming mandate to launch the largest
Overwhelming
mass
mandates.
deportation campaign in American history. And
That's why he
exactly
won.
what he is doing. And to this very day, we are now, I think, 56 or 7 days into the administration by my count. The president still receives an overwhelming public support for the policies
think his,
that he's enacting. So we are unafraid.
the polls are saying he's more popular now than he's ever been.
Effectively, what the president is doing on a daily basis
Because he's actually
to make
doing what
our,
he said he was gonna
community
do.
Safer. And the specific
And voters
video you
like
referenced,
seeing
I
that.
think it sums up our immigration policy pretty
Shocking.
well. You don't have to go home.
You say you're going to do something, you're going to do it, and people are like, yeah, that's what we voted for, and your popularity goes up.
First,
Makes sense.
will President Trump put sanctions on
Maybe
Russia
Biden
if
should have done that.
Tuesday don't go as hoped? And secondly, have any illegal immigrants self-deported through CBP home yet?
To your first question, it's something the president has floated, and certainly he's willing to do if necessary. I don't have anything to read out, and I would never get ahead of the president on such a serious decision. To your second question about the CBP Home app, I would have to check in with the Department of Homeland Security, but it's a great question, and we're very proud to repurpose this app, which the Biden administration abused to facilitate the mass illegal entry of illegal immigrants into our country. It was like a fast pass at Disneyland. That's not happening under this administration. We are encouraging illegal immigrants to actively self-deport to maybe save themselves from being in one of these fun videos. Sure. John.
Because see, if you self-deport, you have a chance to come back in legally. If we catch you and we find out that you came in illegally, you could not be able to come into our country or reapply for citizenship for like 10 to 20 years. So I think it's a good deal to be like, hey, we made a mistake. We came in.
Well, I would
We're going to
defer you
leave.
what the
We're going to try to do
president
it the
put out
legal
this
way.
morning, John, where he said very clearly,
So we're giving
I
him
will
the
read it,
opportunity
"Let
to do the
nobody
right
be
thing."
fooled. The
I
hundreds
think that's a
of
good
attacks
thing.
being made by Houthi, the sinister mobsters and thugs based in Yemen, who are hated by the Yemeni people, are all created by Iran. Any further attack or retaliation by the Houthis will be met with great force, and there is no guarantee that the force will stop there. Iran has played the innocent victim of rogue terrorists.
Not
from which
anymore,
they've lost
boys.
control, but they
Not
haven't
anymore.
lost
Trump ain't
control.
messing
They are
around.
dictating every move, giving them the weapons, supplying them with money and highly sophisticated military equipment, and even so-called intelligence.
We're not messing around
Every shot
anymore,
fired by
boys.
the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire. That is a statement from the president of
Don't
the
mess
United
with
States
America.
just moments ago. I have nothing additional to share.
Don't
But
call our
message
bluff,
to
guys.
Iran is you better take this president seriously, and I think the Houthis learned that the hard way this past weekend. As I said in my opening remarks, there's a new sheriff in town, and this president is not just going to sit on his hands and allow terrorists to launch attacks
This ain't Joe Biden
on
anymore,
commercial
boys.
vessels in US
This
Navy
ain't Joe
ships.
Biden.
Those actions will not be tolerated. Sure, Edward.
Yeah, thanks. Caroline, on the economy. So after mostly a down week last week in the economy, you've been very vocal as well as other cabinet members about how we're in a transition and about how this economic transition, and there's a plan, a long-term plan for tariffs on this. How concerned is the president that the markets and Americans, for lack of a better
What do you guys
term,
think about the
freak out
tariffs
over
that are
these
taking
tariffs
place?
and be concerned
They're all
about
starting
the
on
plan?
Sure.
April
I think
2nd.
I've
I mean,
been
a
asked
lot
this
of them have
question
started,
and
but a
answered
lot
this
more are
question
going to start on April
respectfully,
2nd.
Edward. We are in a period of transition. The president has made that clear. He also has made his belief in tariffs and what they will do for our great country clear, restoring wealth back to our country. And if you look at the president's first-term economic formula, massive deregulation, tax cuts, lowering the cost of living with an energy boom, which the American people
Yeah,
can
boy.
expect soon. Wall
It's
Street
coming.
and Main Street
Get ready.
should both be assured by what President Trump did in his first term. It's the exact same formula. In fact, I would argue
Also,
it's
guys,
even
thanks for
better
voting
this
on the
time
poll
around.
in the
And if you
chat.
look
So
at
far,
some
100%
the
of you
economic
that
indicators
voted
in the last
think,
week,
yes,
the
Trump
latest
is
CPI
doing what he
report last week
promised.
beat expectations. Inflation is cooling.
So
Core
vote on that
inflation
poll in the
dropped for
chat.
the
Drop some
first
comments
time in
if you
4
have an
months.
opinion you
the
want to
national
share.
average of the price of gas is down 42 cents from 1 year ago, and there was also a new report out this morning about wholesale egg prices, they continue to fall.
Eggs are
A dozen
dropping
eggs are now
slowly.
$3.10 cheaper since
Yeah, buddy.
January 24th.
Yeah, buddy.
First, that's a 47% decrease overall. So I think the
Still
American
pricey,
people do have great
but they're going in the
reason
right
to be
direction.
optimistic about this economy. And as I've said repeatedly, it continues to be true. The administration has a whole of government effort to fix the economic mess created by Biden.
So the president's pointed to that April 2nd tariff deadline, so to speak. Is the tariff back and forth sort of done now? We're just all looking towards April 2nd?
Well, I think the president would tell you that all options are always on the table, and he's always ready to respond if he feels the United States is being unfairly treated by our allies and also our competitors around the world. But yes, the April 2nd day is a big day for the country, as the president has said. Reciprocal tariffs will go
It's
into
coming.
effect. We'll have more details on
If
that
you
as
rip
the
us
date
off,
nears, but our entire
we're gonna-
trade team,
we're gonna
Secretary
reciprocate.
Lutnick, Secretary Bessent, the vice president has been quite involved in these talks and discussions as well about what that will look like. And the president, as you always do, you will hear from him directly on it. Deborah Saunders, how are you?
Fine, how are you doing?
Good, thanks.
Former pardon attorney Elizabeth Boyer believes she was fired for refusing to sign off on a move to restore gun rights to actor Mel Gibson. DOJ's Todd Blanche says no. But I want to know, is the administration dedicated to restoring gun rights to felons who served their times? I ask this because I've talked to people who were pardoned. They felt that was important. Of course, this isn't necessarily for a pardon. What is the president's thinking on this issue?
Sure.
After you've served your sentence, should you have gun rights?
It's an important question. It is one I have not spoken to the president about on his views, but I will take it to him this afternoon. I will tell him you asked, and we will get you an answer. You're welcome. Jonathan.
Thanks a lot, Carolyn. A question for you regarding the administration complying with judges' orders. I want to ask about an administration spokesperson whose the borders are, Tom Homan. He was on Fox News.
We love Tom Homan.
And he was talking about the deportations, and he said the following. He said, "We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think," which seems to me...
Can't stop
just
what's
reading
not,
that,
boys.
that
If you're enjoying the live stream,
you
hit
don't
that thumbs
care
up button.
what
Let's get this
orders
video
come
to the
from
top of the streaming
federal
charts
bench.
so we can reach
Is
more
that the
people and
case?
spread the
Can you
word
clarify
of
that,
what
please?
President
Well,
Trump
I
is
think
doing
since you just
for the
quoted
country.
Tom, I'll quote Tom. He said, "I don't care what the judges think, but I can assure you that the administration is complying with the court order. And as I've said repeatedly from this podium, all of the flights that were subject to the judge's written order departed before the written order, and we are prepared to make that case in court later this afternoon." Reagan.
And then if I could, on Russia, the president, as you pointed out, Caroline, made some remarks on Air Force One coming back from Florida, and he seemed to indicate that the conversation tomorrow concerns essentially dividing up assets, dividing up territory associated with the war in Ukraine. Has President Zelensky given President Trump that authority? Is that what is going to take place tomorrow?
Well, as you know, the president and his entire national security team have been engaged directly with President Zelensky and the Ukrainians.
We're talking now, like,
and that has been
you know,
part
we're
of
talking
the
with Putin, we're
discussion
talking
between
with
the
Zelensky.
president's team
We're
and
gonna
the
get this war
Ukrainians.
stopped.
As for where those lines will
We're gonna
be
get it
drawn or any
stopped.
specifics, I am not going to get into that from this podium. It would be
Will it happen overnight?
unwise
Probably
for me
not,
to
but we're
ahead
gonna
of
get
the
it stopped.
president's call with President Putin tomorrow. But again, I can assure you, in the effort of transparency, as this president always does, you will hear from him or one of us directly after that phone call tomorrow. Reagan.
Thank you, Caroline. There's a lot of focus on the judicial branch right now. The president has about 40 judicial
Kansas
appointments
beats
that he could make at this moment.
America.
Do you have an update on what the timeline would look like for those judicial
Like, we're not just going to
appointments?
keep
Does the
funding
president have a
this
list
war
of
indefinitely.
nominees that he's vetting?
I do not
We're
have
getting
an
people to
update
the
on
table, and people are
timeline
actually
nor
starting to have
the list,
conversations
but I
now
can
about how we
certainly
can
have
get
our
this
team
ended.
gather that for you and
What
provide it.
concessions people have to make on both sides.
Sure.
No,
Go ahead.
no one party's going to be like,
Sure.
think everything's great. You know, Russia's going to have to concede some things. Ukraine's going to have to concede some things. But it is what it is. If we can just stop the killing that's going on, I think that's a good thing.
Which is an American company showcasing China before communism.
Kelly says, I wonder what Dems will say when Trump ends it. They'll probably be like, oh, he's in Putin's pocket. How dare he end the war? We had to give up some land to Russia.
Is putting an emphasis on arts and culture. what's the administration?
Like, you think Russia's gonna stop? You think Russia's going to stop fighting if they think they're not going to get any
This
land from it?
administration will take that very seriously and hold you accountable. We obviously
Like, I'm not
condemn
saying Russia should have
any
invaded in the
violence
first
or
place.
threats of
Just
violence
Putin
against
should not have.
American
Putin's not a good guy.
institutions, and the president will be
But
traveling to
they,
Kennedy
like,
Center
a lot
later this
of
afternoon.
Russians
I
have
look forward
died.
to
A lot
going
of
with
money
him.
has been
As you know,
spent.
he is
They've
now
been
the
fighting for
chairman of
3
the board
years.
of the
You think
Kennedy
they're just
Center,
gonna
where he
pack their
hopes
bags
to
and walk away
restore,
without getting any of the
arts and
land
culture
they
that
took?
embrace American tradition.
No, that's
Don't
not how it
disparage
works.
it, as we have
They're not just going to
unfortunately
walk
seen
away because we
over the past
asked.
several years.
They're going to be like, okay, what do we get out of it? If we stop fighting, what do we get out of it? And that's what we're trying to figure out.
I'm sure he will make some recommendations on how the center itself can be improved, but also we'll be discussing.
It's a complicated
perhaps
topic.
Some future plays.
But we just
and
can't keep
musicals
funding it
and
because
theatrical
it's
programs
just hurting our
that the
economy.
center will be hosting under the
And
his new
people just
leadership
keep
and
dying.
Trump's new leadership. Daniel.
Will the president be discussing?
But Democrats, I don't know. Some of them will be happy that it ended, and some of them will be like, no, we should have kept
Again,
fighting.
I've been asked and answered this question now. I'm not going to get ahead of the president.
But some Democrats also think we
after
shouldn't
the phone
deport
call takes
criminals.
place, I can certainly
We should
provide
just
a
keep them
recap.
here.
Daniel.
Caroline, thank you so much. You mentioned earlier in the briefing that you guys are at the 10-yard line of peace. Given the amount of progress that you've made in such
So we'll see what happens.
time, is that an indictment of the previous administration's foreign policy stance, and is it just more proof that you need to talk to people to sort of get things done?
I think so. I think the previous administration is the reason this war began. As President Trump often says, this war would have never started if he were still in office. It only started because of the incompetence and the weakness of the previous administration. And President Trump is very proud of the progress that he and his team have made in such a short amount of time. And hopefully tomorrow that progress will move forward.
Kezzy says we weren't explicitly funding it with money. We mostly gave them degrading military equipment that was going to be decommissioned anyway. Well, even if that's true, that military equipment costed money.
Aggression against Ukraine, which is designed to hopefully
And we still had to, like, pay to get it there.
Are you able to confirm
Like,
that?
we've
And
given
that
$300 billion, and other
I'm
countries
not able to confirm it because
haven't
I
given
have not heard that.
near
I
as
will
much.
Caution. I know there have been many
So why are we funding,
inaccurate and misleading
you know,
reports
this whole
from
thing?
Reuters lately, so I would caution anybody taking that seriously, but I can check in and get back to you. Rachel.
Caroline. Is it the president's belief that the Justice Department should be investigating members of the January 6th Select Committee? Is he directing the DOJ to do that?
As the president made it very clear in his address on Friday, I believe some of you were there, I was there, he made his vision for what he would like to see of the Department of Justice very clear, but he said that he has appointed great people in Attorney General Pam Bondi and also in our FBI Director Kash Patel to do what they think is best for our justice system and to stop the weaponization of justice that we saw under the previous administration against not just President Trump but his supporters as well. We want to restore the Department of Justice to an institution that focuses on fighting law and order and crime and putting real criminals behind bars, not targeting Americans because of their religion.
Kenzie
or
says
their
this also
political
creates
speech.
more
We
jobs
saw
for
that under
Americans
the
to refill the
previous
equipment for our
administration,
own
and it's
military.
unacceptable to this president.
I think most Americans would agree that, like, hey, maybe we don't make jobs, but we'd rather have less jobs here in America if it means people overseas or anywhere stop dying, for the matter. That's like saying, oh, the war's going on, people are dying, but the weapons we're giving away, we have to make more weapons to refill the stockpile, so that's good because jobs, no, I think everybody could agree that, like, we will take the hit on jobs if it means people aren't dying. It's not really a fair trade-off, you know?
There couldn't be in the future, but as of right now, the
It's like, oh, people are dying, but oh, we get jobs. We get some jobs. Nah.
In fact, before I came down here,
I
there
think
was an
the majority
email note in my
of
inbox
Americans
from
or
the
just people in
Department of
general
Homeland
want to have
Security
peace.
on what they are actually doing state by state across the board. So rest assured, Secretary Noem and her team is on it, and I would defer you to the Department of Homeland and Security for any further details.
One more question. The president referenced power plants with a conversation with Vladimir Putin. What is he referring to with power plants? What is that?
There's a power plant that is on the border of Russia and Ukraine that was up for discussion with the Ukrainians, and he will address it in his call with Putin tomorrow.
The nuclear plant.
Correct. Okay. Yes. Do you have a question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously Ukraine has a right to defend itself. I mean, I don't think Russia should have invaded in the first place.
El Salvador this week.
But that doesn't mean we have to like fund them indefinitely to defend
I don't believe so
themselves.
because of the privacy
Like we've given them a lot of
concerns at
money.
this point in
We can't
time.
have
That
this
doesn't
war
mean
keep
we
going
won't
on
eventually.
forever.
I would defer you to the
People need to
Department
come
of
to the
Homeland
table,
Security for more
and we need to
details
be
on
like,
the
enough is
individuals on the
enough.
flights,
Enough people
but
have
we have
died.
been incredibly transparent
This
in
isn't
giving
going
you a
to end
breakdown
well
of the
for
numbers
anybody
and
involved. We
also
need
some
to
of the crimes
get to the
committed by
table,
these heinous
talk it
criminals
over,
and
and figure out how we're going to
individuals,
move on.
Kidnapping, sexual abuse of a
Because
child,
we just can't keep
robbery,
going on forever.
aggravated assault on a police officer. I would remind everybody in this room that Tren de Aragua is a foreign terrorist organization operating within the United States of America because the previous administration
Do me a favor, guys.
allowed
Hit
them
that
to
thumbs
invade
up
our
button if you're
country.
enjoying the live
These are
stream.
monsters who
We're
tortured,
watching
raped,
the
and
live
murdered
press
a
briefing
12-year-old
from the White
Jocelyn
House.
Youngray. They murdered 22-year-old nursing student Laken Riley. They led a multi-state sex trafficking operation involving smuggling women into the United States, holding them in stash houses in Louisiana, Florida, New Jersey, Texas, and Virginia, and forcing them into prostitution. They kidnapped and murdered a 33-year-old woman in Texas. They sexually
I don't
and
think trying to
physically assaulted
stop
a
the
woman
war
and
that's
her
going on
daughter
in Ukraine
Wisconsin.
is
They conducted
bending
a
the
mass
knee to
shooting in
Putin.
Illinois. They peddled untraceable ghost guns across New
I
York
think
City.
if you
took
want
over
peace,
in
you
Aurora,
have to make
Colorado
some
apartment
concessions.
complex where they kidnapped and tortured victims. And by
Obviously,
the way,
I don't think
many of you in the
Putin should have went
mainstream
into
media said that
Ukraine,
didn't happen. It
but he
turned out
did.
that it did, and because of the effective
I think he did
immigration
because we
policies
had a
of this
very weak president,
administration,
Joe
those
Biden,
foreign
and that's
terrorists
why
were
he
detained, and they are
went
no
in
longer
because he knew Joe
operating
Biden.
in
He saw
American
how
soil,
Joe
and our
Biden pulled out of
president to thank for that.
other
We'll
places.
see you guys later at the Kennedy Center. Thanks so much.
And he's like, well, we're going to go into Ukraine because obviously they don't know what they're doing in this administration. But there you go, guys. That was the press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, briefing members of the media on March 17th, 2025. That was the live broadcast from the White House. The link for that original video is in the chat, pinned over there, if you want to check it out for yourself without my commentary. What else could we look at in the news? We could watch some more videos. I don't know if anything new has came out recently. I know Fox News. Let's go to Fox News.
Thanks for subscribing.
Hey, thank you for subscribing, by the way.
Notifications on to stay up to date.
Who was that? That was Lil83. Thank you, Lil83, for subscribing. Appreciate it. Daytona Beach spring break shooting. That doesn't sound good. Trump says he will speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday. This was 7 hours ago.
President Donald Trump says a conversation with Russia's President Vladimir Putin is coming shortly, and with that, hopes for an announcement on it early this week. The president addressed reporters aboard Air Force One as he left Palm Beach International Airport late Sunday night, heading back to Washington. Mr. Trump says lots of talks and negotiations happened over the weekend, and a planned chat with Russia's President Vladimir Putin could yield new details. President Trump says the negotiations
And yeah, Trump
this
did
weekend were
just
getting
win
down
a
to
golf
detailed
championship like a
specifics,
couple days ago.
and both Russia and Ukraine may both have to make concrete
He took out some terrorists the
concessions
day
to close
before,
the
and he
deal
goes and plays
to end
golf,
the war.
wins the tournament, and then he's back to business. Joe Biden couldn't even get out of bed half the time.
We're doing pretty well, I think, with Russia. And we'll see if we have something to announce maybe by Tuesday. I'll be speaking to President Putin on Tuesday. And a lot of,
Kenzie says he wants to save American taxpayers, but every time he goes golfing, he costs the taxpayers a lot of money. Well, he's also working for free.
maybe we can't, but I think we have a very good chance.
Like he's donating all the money. I think the president makes like, I don't know, $1 million a year or something. Maybe it's 300,000. I don't know. But he every year he's been president, he's just redonated his paycheck. So he's working for free. So I think it's okay if he goes and plays some golf.
It's a big question. But I think we have a lot of it.
Being president of the United States is a very stressful job.
Both sides. Ukraine and Russia.
If he needs to go play golf to relax, to clear his mind, so he can get back to making America great again, that's fine with me. Everybody needs a break.
Yeah, and they've been working on that.
Like a lot of people watching, they have jobs, right? You work 40 hours a week. Some people more than 40 hours a week. You still get days off. You get vacation time.
Donald Trump
You guys think the
overnight
president shouldn't get some time
aboard,
off?
Air Force One. Again, following this breaking news, President
He
Donald
wakes up
Trump
at like
says he
3
will
in the
talk
morning
to
every day.
Russian President Vladimir Putin this Tuesday.
Maybe it's 5 a.m.
to
I think he
push
wakes up at like
an
5
end
a.m.
to
every
the
day,
war in
and he just
Ukraine. Of
goes
course, make sure you're
nonstop.
staying
Where
tuned to
Biden
Live
didn't even
Now
get out of
from
bed
Fox
till
News
like
as those
1 p.m. every
conversations
day.
get underway. And if a camera is allowed inside,
So
we will
Biden's
bring
already
it to you
done.
right
I mean,
here
Trump's already done
on Live
more
Now
in
from
like
Fox.
53 days
And
than
speaking
Biden
of
did in
President
4
Donald
years.
Trump, take a look at your screen.
So even
This
if
just
Trump
in
just
on
like took a
this
vacation
Monday,
for like
March
the next
17th, from
4
President
years,
Donald Trump
he's
on
still done more
Truth
than Biden did.
Social. Take a look as President Trump calls former President
But it cost
Biden's
millions during
pardon
his last term.
void.
Maybe it
A
cost
lot we are
millions because
following,
yeah, you have to
for
pay
this
for
story.
security
The
and stuff.
statement on your screen
But he's
is
also
from
saved
President
a
Trump
lot.
on his
You know how much
website,
Doge
Truth
has saved?
Social, on this Monday.
Saved so far?
We are learning that it says, quote, the pardons there.
I think we can spend a couple $1 million here and there, so Trump can play some golf.
Committee of political thugs and many others are hereby declared void, vacant, and of no further force or effect because of the fact that they were done by auto pen. In other words, Joe Biden did not.
Yeah, and
sign
half
them,
the
but more
like half
importantly,
the
he did not
signatures
know
Biden,
anything
like half
about
the
them.
documents
The
Biden
necessary
signed,
documents
he just
were
did
not
with auto pen.
explained to or
If he
approved
even
by
did it,
Biden.
it could have
He
just
knew
been someone
nothing
in his
about
cabinet
them,
just
and
like,
the
yeah, this
people
is a good
that
idea.
did may
Auto
have
pen,
committed
yeah,
a
the
crime.
president signed off on it,
President
sure.
Trump goes on to
Well,
say,
Trump, he actually
therefore,
signs
those
things
on
with
the
the pen.
Unselect Committee
And I'm
who
sure he does some
destroyed
auto
and
pen stuff
deleted
too.
all evidence
But for like big
obtained
stuff,
during their 2-year
he
witch
signs
hunt
it with the
of
pen,
me,
and he usually
and
does
many
it on
other
camera
innocent
in front of the
people should
press,
fully
takes
understand
questions.
that they are subject to investigation at the highest
I don't even think
level.
Biden knew
The
he was
fact
president
is
half
they
the
were
time.
probably
I'm going to be honest with
responsible
you.
for the
I don't
documents
think he
that
knew
were
he was
signed on
president,
their behalf
especially
without
toward
the
the end.
knowledge or consent of the worst president in the history of our country, Crooked Joe Biden. Again, that from
Crooked Joe
President
Biden.
Donald Trump on this Monday morning.
Give that video a like. Okay, what else we got? Let's see what else Fox News has. What do we got here? U.S. warships shoot down Houthi drones after airstrike. I know there's some stuff going on in the Red Sea. Some like terrorist groups have kept cargo ships and stuff from traveling through the Red Sea. So we've been having to go around the long way, which has cost Americans and everybody millions and billions of dollars. And now we're actually taking out the people that are attacking the ships.
Ceased their attacks on the shipping along a vital
So that in itself has
corridor
just
there
saved all
in
the money
Red
we spent on
Sea.
Trump golfing. So there you
Fox
go.
News earlier today,
I think that's a
National
pretty fair
Security
trade-off.
Advisor Mike Waltz was on that program, detailed the latest on what's coming, what's happening there in that region.
If you're just popping in, guys, welcome to the stream. We just finished watching the White House press briefing with Caroline Levitt. And now we're watching different news stories that are happening around the world.
Reaching out to
If you're enjoying the video, give it a thumbs up. Get us to the top of the streaming charts and hit that like button. Also, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more of my content.
Israel to do a joint operation on Iran's nuclear facilities.
This is mainly a gaming channel. I play a lot of video games, Fortnite and stuff, but I also talk politics, react to videos like this. So if you like gaming and occasional politics, hit that subscribe button.
Let's talk about the situation that we inherited in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. We have not had a U.S. warship transit that area in over 4 months. We haven't had a U.S.-flagged commercial vessel in over a year. 70% of global shipping has been diverted from two of the world's
Let's look up
most
CNN
strategic
then.
waterways, adding cost.
Let's go to CNN and see what they're reporting.
Shows you the division.
Let's look up what CNN's been doing. Let's see. Trump and Putin to hold call on Ukraine.
Sealed with a phone call? Well, the US president says he thinks there is, in his words, a very good chance he can broker an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine.
Let's see what good old CNN's doing.
Scheduled tomorrow. The Kremlin confirming just hours ago that that call will happen. In comments on Sunday, Donald Trump indicated the focus of the call will be about land concessions, potentially the biggest obstacle to reaching a ceasefire.
I believe Putin said he wants to, like, he's all for peace, but he wants to talk to Trump one-on-one first before anything official happens, any ceasefires or anything happen, which makes sense.
And we'll be talking about land. We'll be talking about power plants. That's it's a big question.
Where like Biden wouldn't pick up. Biden didn't talk to like Putin at all during his presidency, did he? Like maybe a handful of times. But you know,
busy flight that. Well, exactly how the
just crazy
Russian president will respond is anyone's guess. In a news conference last week, Putin laid out tough conditions and demanded concessions from Kyiv before accepting the U.S. peace plan. Well, CNN's Claire Sebastian joining us now from London. Elena Treen is at the White House. Claire, we've just in the last few hours heard from the Kremlin that this call will happen. What are the expectations on the part of Vladimir Putin in what he might get out of this?
Well, Becky, I think this is potentially a unnerving, if not perilous, moment for Ukraine, right? Because Ukraine had a very positive week last week after the talks in Saudi Arabia. U.S. military aid was restored. It seemed like their relationship with their biggest backer was getting back on track. I think for Putin, this call this week represents an opportunity to reverse some of that progress, to try to drive a wedge again between the U.S. and Ukraine. Don't forget, after the last time they spoke back on February 12th, it was a few days later, and of course we cannot prove causality here, but it was a few days later that we started to hear rhetoric coming from President Trump calling President Zelensky a dictator, and then we had that cascade of events that led up to the Oval Office meeting. So that is one aspect for Ukraine to keep an eye on, and of course Ukraine's European allies, the foreign ministers of which are meeting in Brussels today and are clearly, from the commentary that we heard from them going into that meeting, trying to reiterate the point that, of course, it is Russia, not Ukraine at this point, standing in the way of peace. But look, President Trump seems to be suggesting that a lot of work has been done ahead of this call, that there was
a lot of work has been done.
He may have something to
The
announce,
professionals are
but
doing their
hedging
thing.
again on whether they can end this war. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. So I think for now, Russia is keeping officially its commentary very light, not commenting at all on what it expects from this meeting.
Elena, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff was Trump's Sherpa, effectively. He said on CNN yesterday that he had a positive meeting with Putin last week. What more do we understand to have come out of that meeting?
Well, there's a few things, Becky. One, I was told that that meeting lasted several hours and actually went into the early morning of Friday, but then also that Witkoff left directly and then over the weekend, well, he made a pit stop, I should say, in Azerbaijan, but then over the weekend came to Florida where the president was at his Mar-a-Lago home and briefed him on everything that happened. Now, clearly, the president is very much impressed and confident in what Witkoff shared with him in order for him to so publicly go out there and say that he believes that there's a good chance to ending the war. He believes that they've made progress through those discussions and that he
That's a
wants
good thing.
to physically and directly speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin himself tomorrow. Now, I think one of the most interesting things we've learned, and from what the president said himself directly to reporters on Air Force One, is that they're already starting to give us a little sense of what the conversation with Putin could look like. When the president said, and you played some of this, that he thinks that they'll be talking about land. A lot of land is different than it was before.
Elon has got to go, man. Also, you see that the Veterans March that the media blocked. Why do you think Elon has to go?
Could include, we know,
Elon's been shining a spotlight on all the wasteful spending that previous administrations have let happen.
Are going to
all the
have to
funding
make
of just crap we are
forward.
spending so much money on.
We already know that Ukraine has kind of made those concessions.
Like
when they
Sesame
met
Street
last week
shows
with
in like
the US
Iraq.
delegation,
Why do we need
and
that
they
for?
agreed to that temporary
Is that like
ceasefire.
$20 million or something for a
officials
Sesame Street show in
President
Iraq?
himself have said that
Like
now
we
the
could have
ball
spent
is
that
in
money
Russia's
here
court. And so I think what they're
in
going to be
America
looking for out of
to
these
create
continued
jobs,
talks
to help
is
with
what
homelessness,
concessions are Russia,
to help build housing.
Is Russia and Vladimir Putin directly willing
But no.
to make, and can
It's just
they
stupid
guarantee
programs.
that?
Like,
And
what are we
that's
spending
really
all that
where
money
a
for?
lot of this stems
If
from.
Democrats
It
want to
does
spend
seem
money on
like
those things,
the
they
White House
should,
is very confident with
you
how
know,
these
go
discussions
donate
have
to
been
those
going. I've been
causes
hearing that in the
themselves.
private conversations as well. And
Put some
we'll
money
just
in the
have
mail,
to see
donate to them
how this
themselves.
goes tomorrow.
Don't take it out of
Between
everybody
the
else's
president,
taxes to pay
the
for that
United
crap.
States President, President Trump, as well as Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow.
This is CNN. This isn't conservative media, dude. What are you talking about, Kinsey?
Yeah, who's the better negotiator at the end of the day?
No, I was watching
One
Fox
can only
News.
assume that
Huckleberry, I
the,
was watching
Russian
Fox
president
News.
has a long
And then
game,
I believe Kinsey recommended I switch to
perhaps
a more
looking at a sort of shorter time period here. It'll be interesting
guess,
to see what comes out of this. It's good to
how
have
did
you
she
both.
phrase
Thank
it?
you very much indeed. Stephen, Donald Trump saying he thinks there's a good chance
to
of
news
a
media that
ceasefire
wasn't
coming out of
conservative.
this
So I
call.
turned on some CNN. I guess CNN is still a thing.
We know that Vladimir Putin has been and may be in this.
I don't really like
for
watching
the long
CNN
game. We also know
or like
that
CSNBC
Donald
or,
Trump
you
is
know,
looking for
because
a short-term
they're
win.
just
In
so
fact, he
negative.
promised that this,
It's like
war
Trump
would be
could
over within the
could
24
like
hours of
solve
his
cancer.
tenure.
He come up with
What do you make of what we are hearing out of both
he
sides,
could just
the
fix
messaging
cancer,
at this point?
and they'd be like, oh, That's a bad
That's
thing.
a good point. The way that the Americans,
Trump could save a kitten from a tree, and they'd be like, "How dare he climb that tree? He ripped the bark off. He broke some branches. How dare he? Global warming, because the tree branches won't grow back." It's just so stupid.
Administration is very upbeat.
Truly dumb.
on
How's it going,
its
man?
Discussions with the Russians. On the one hand, I think that makes sense because.
But
if you're involved
CNN
in a
and other
diplomatic
outlets like
negotiation,
CNN,
you have to give the
whenever they talk about
impression of
Ukraine,
progress,
they're like, "Oh,
try and create momentum,
Trump is
even
in
if there
Putin's
isn't
pocket.
really much progress."
Trump is just
Caveat,
a
of
mouthpiece
course, is
of
that we don't know
Putin.
what's been going on behind
Trump
the
only
scenes
wants the
in
war to
granularity of
end
these
because he wants
discussions
Putin to
the
to have all
Russians
this new
and
land
with,
and stuff.
the Ukrainians.
No, Trump
But at
wants
the
to
same
stop
time,
people from dying,
President Putin has
and I don't know why
effectively
Democrats are so
rejected
against that.
Trump's call for an immediate ceasefire. That happened
They
last
just
week,
expect
with
America
all
to
of
keep
these
funding
different,
this war forever.
Conditions that the
No.
Russians applied, and although
We want it to
the
stop.
U.S. side says they agree on principle, it's clear, as you say, that the Russians are going to
Manfred Beck, how you doing, Manfred?
out because they're
How's it going, man?
doing better on the battlefield right now than the Ukrainians. And I think there's a slight warning sign when the president is already talking about dividing up assets. These seem to be.
I'm not against that. I just think the bad guy has to lose, right? It's not always that
is being
clear cut,
negotiated,
man.
a permanent peace. It seems a little bit getting the cart before
It's
the
not always
horse
that clear cut.
if they're talking about them now. And let's not forget these assets that Trump is talking about. They're Ukrainian assets that were seized by
Yeah,
Russia
Putin shouldn't have
in an
invaded
invasion.
Ukraine,
So
but
I think
and
there'll
from
be
Putin's
concern
point of
in
view,
Europe that
he
once
he
again,
needed to because
Putin
Ukraine was talking about becoming part of
Trump
NATO.
is leading
And
closer
Putin was
to the
like,
position of Putin
"Don't do that
than
because if you do
Ukrainians."
that, you're
Well, as
basically
the
going to be
US
on our
and Russian
doorstep.
presidents get ready
America's going to be on
for
our
that
doorstep,
phone
and we don't
call,
want
European
that."
diplomats
And they
are
said, "Don't
talking
do that,"
about
and they
what
were still
role
talking
they
about
can
it.
play. EU foreign ministers gathered in
So I
Brussels
guess
today
Putin
to
felt like
discuss
he had to
providing
do this.
more money for Ukraine's defense.
Also, I think
The
it's because
US
Biden was just a very
strained
weak president, and
relationship with
Putin
US
knew he could get away
was
with it.
also on the agenda.
Because when
Mr.
Trump was in
Dillon
office,
is
Putin was
skeptical
not
that
invading
Russia
anywhere.
is really ready
He wasn't
for
invading
peace with
Ukraine.
Ukraine.
The world was pretty peaceful for the most part during Trump's first presidency.
They have presented, it shows that they don't really want peace.
But like, I think Putin realized he's never going to get a better
because, they
chance
are
than when
presenting
Biden was in
as
office to do this, so he
all
did it.
their ultimate goals that
And
they
that's
want
why
to
he went in.
achieve
Does that
from
mean
the war.
Putin
There's a
was
broad
right in doing it?
political
No.
support for that,
Putin shouldn't have done that.
initiative, which
He
is-
invaded
which
another
is good,
country, and
but
that's
there's
not a
lot
good
of
thing.
details that need to be worked out.
But we can either just
because,
we can just
there are
keep
also
fighting
defense
and funding the
ministers
war
that need
indefinitely and
to,
be like, well, we have to win because we're the
have
good
say,
guys, and
we
what
have
Putin
a
did was
meeting
wrong,
of defense
and we just keep
ministers,
fighting
but
forever,
it's
and people are
important
dying,
that
and we just
the
keep funding it
council
forever.
said
Or we
we
can be
need to
like,
move swiftly,
yo,
and
this
that
is
is what
the
we are doing.
situation we have. We want people to stop dying. We're going to have to make some concessions. We want this to stop so we can all move on with our lives, make the best of it. And sometimes that's how it has to be.
David, great to see you again.
There's
He's
no
the
really
author
any
of the
winner
new
when it
Cold
comes to
Wars,
war.
China's rise, Russia's invasion,
If we can just
and
get the killing to
America's
stop
struggle to defend the West.
and like peace to
David,
start,
really
I think
great
that
to
is a
be
win,
speaking,
you know?
with you once again. We were hearing there much skepticism, I think.
I mean,
coming
bad
out
guys
of
also a
Brussels
relative.
ahead of
The
this
villain and the
call
heroes of
set to be
history
held
is defined by the
tomorrow.
winners and
And, you know,
losers.
one can
I'm sure there
understand
are
why.
countries
How
who
much
generally view us as the
risk
villains.
does this
Yeah, that's
call
true.
carry for Ukraine at this
True.
moment?
Well, thanks.
I'm sure from Russia's point of view,
carries a lot of
Ukraine
risk
is the bad
for
guy.
Ukraine.
You
It
know,
carries some
and
risk for the
Russia's doing
Europeans who
some
are
noble
meeting.
thing.
They're not on the call.
Everybody has their own
and
point of view.
Neither are the Ukrainians. So, you
Just
know,
like
we heard
Democrats
from
think
President,
Trump is Hitler.
Trump yesterday, and as he
'Cause
was
they're
flying
idiots.
back on Air Force One, that he's going to have this call, and that
But
when
like
he does
Finland,
have the
other
call,
border
there will be
Russia that are
discussion
NATO.
over how much territory
Where in some
Russia
ways and
gets
not
to
in
hold
others,
on to.
no country is innocent
The fate
across
of
the board.
Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, we assume that's the plant.
Has Trump
that
addressed the
he
storms
is,
in America? I'm not
discussing.
sure. He may have like
And,
made some
we've
comments
known,
here or
of
there, but I don't
course,
think he's
for
like.
years that Russia would
He might have made
end
like a
up
statement on
with some
X or on
land
True
that
Social.
they, seized illegally from this invasion, and of course from the seizure of Crimea. The question isn't whether they end up with it. The question is, do the Ukrainians get a voice, an equal voice in this negotiation too?
So all the red on the map that
or
you're
is
seeing,
this
I guess,
something that's
is
just gonna be
all
decided between Vladimir
the
Putin
stuff Russia has
and
currently
President
that
Trump?
they've taken over.
Or is this something that's
Like all the red you see, that is what Russia has so far, I guess. And then the yellow stuff territories regained by Ukraine since February 24, 2022. Okay, interesting. Okay, so what else does CNN have? What else could we watch over on CNN? This one is called Jasmine Crockett reacts to CNN poll showing Democrats' favorability at an all-time low. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with the Democrats.
Senate vote with Republicans.
Their favorability ratings are very low.
With a Republican funding bill averting a government shutdown.
I think there's a lot of people leaving the Democrat Party.
And nothing achieved for Democratic priorities.
Because, like, we're literally trying to ship criminals out of our country. They entered our country illegally. They did very bad things. And now we're trying to hold them accountable and get them out of here. And Democrats are like, don't do that. How dare we try to ship out these rapists and murderers? How dare we do that? That's a terrible thing. And like people with common sense, even on the Democrat side, they're like, are we really a part of this party that thinks it's a good idea to keep criminals here in America? And they're like, why are we even a part of this party anymore? They've clearly lost their way. They think Trump's Hitler. They think the way to stop wars in Israel is by drawing swastikas on freaking Cybertrucks and harassing people who own Teslas and causing riots at Tesla dealerships. You don't see Republicans lighting fires and like burning down buildings in protest. Republicans are like going to jobs and actually going to work. Like, I mean, there's some Democrats with common sense, but there's some extreme Democrats out there that just want to hate Trump simply because it's the popular thing to do. They don't even know why they hate Trump. They're just like, well, my party said Trump's a bad guy, so I guess I have to think he's a bad guy because it's a cult.
Many of
It's
us
stupid.
did not sleep because we were calling and trying to impress upon the
January
senators
6th?
the importance of pushing back.
People
at
say
this
January
moment.
6th was an
And as you
insurrection.
saw,
No, it was like a
we had
handful of people.
one Democrat in the House that voted
There was
for
a
this,
lot
and
of people there
212 Democrats
at
in the
that
House.
peaceful
And then you
protest.
had,
And there was like
the vast
maybe,
majority of
all things
senators,
considered, a handful of people that actually went in and broke some windows and stuff.
The idea that Chuck Schumer
And
is
some of
the
those might have been
only
like
one that's got a
undercover
brain
people
in the
trying to
room
just
and the only
cause
one that can think through all
cause
the pros
mayhem
and cons is absolutely
because they
ridiculous.
wanted Trump to
And
look
Jake,
bad.
You and I both know that this
And Trump said we can give you guys 10,000 troops, 10,000 military, and Nancy Pelosi's like, nah, we don't want that. It kind of looked like a setup. Trump's like, you know, things could get rowdy because people are passionate. Maybe we better call some troops in, 10,000 troops. You want them? You can have them. Nancy Pelosi's like, nah, we're just gonna have a handful of guards at the Capitol, Capitol guards, Capitol Police, just a handful, to like try to like calm the nerves of like 80,000 people. It's almost like Democrats wanted things to go bad to make Trump look bad.
Leadership in the Senate
Yeah.
for Democrats, even House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries.
Meanwhile, you got
He was asked if he supports
protests
Schumer,
happening where Democrats are burning down police stations, burning down churches, firebombing the White House. But nobody talks about that. None of those people go to jail. They don't even get a slap on the
I
wrist.
think Senate Democrats have to sit down.
But else some
and take a
people
look and decide whether or not Chuck
walked
Schumer
into the
is
Capitol,
one
took some
to lead in
selfies.
this
They
moment.
deserve 20 years in prison.
You're close
It's
to
stupid.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, and not just progressives, by the way. We've heard that moderates have said this too.
Why did Russia
They're
invade?
ready to support her.
I think Putin said because they didn't want Ukraine to be part of NATO, and Biden was seriously considering making Ukraine part of NATO, something like that. I don't know. Trump, I mean, Putin can literally say anything. You'd have to ask Putin why he invaded.
I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years.
Relations between the two countries became hostile after 2014 Ukrainian revolution, which was followed by Russia's annexation of Crimea from Ukraine and the war in Donbass.
What part of the spectrum you're on. But many
Interesting.
Americans may be looking for it, especially in the state of New York.
I believe Putin had like this really long interview with Tucker Carlson a while back, and he just gave like this big long history lesson to Tucker of why he thought parts of Ukraine should never have been parts of Ukraine and that they were actually Russian. So I don't know. I don't know.
Including Democratic Senator John Fetterman called it bizarre.
Obviously, Putin's going to normalize going in there and thinking it's a good
I will
thing.
say that your punching looked better than some of your colleagues.
Does it mean it was a good thing?
Fetterman has been
No.
criticizing your party for undignified antics and a sad cavalcade of cell phones during the president's address to Congress. what's your response to Senator Fetterman?
So it's a continuation of that conflict. He claimed
He's
separation
not
of
the one to talk about
Donbass were
anything.
being
This is
genocided.
A guy that doesn't seemingly want to
Interesting.
own a suit. I'm not.
Do me a
really
favor, guys.
sure,
Hit that like
but I
button
don't
if
show
you're
up in
enjoying the
meetings
live
when
stream.
I'm going on the floor. And so
We're watching,
the idea that you would say that we could not have a moment in
We're
which
watching
an
CNN.
influencer asked us to do this. Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you.
Did you
and
watch
tell you
Trump's
that when
State of
he
the
asked me to
Union
jump, I said,
speech?
"You
Well, it
asked
wasn't
my
really a
older
State of the
colleagues
Union, but
to
it
do
felt like a
this
State of the
because
Union.
I feel like you're picking on me because you think that my knees are a little
Where like
younger.
he was
And, I
like
did not
Democrats
know
wouldn't
who all
stand
was
during
in
his
this
speech. They wouldn't
particular
clap. They
trend
wouldn't even
whatsoever.
smile.
And I think that it is
Even when they gave
important that
the
people see
kid
that
with
we're
cancer, brain
equal.
cancer,
And
like an
that means
honorary,
that
was it
there's a
FBI
moment to
membership or
laugh.
something
That's
like that?
okay,
They wouldn't
especially
clap for that.
Since it seems like we're doing
They
more
just
crime
sat
than
there with their
anything,
little
but
signs.
Just know that we were not on the House floor jumping around.
Like it was just sad to
Whereas
watch.
Senator Fetterman is
I'm not saying it's right or correct or even honest, but that is what his justification for the conflict.
That they literally had to change the rules in the Senate so that he could walk around that way. So I just don't think that
Also, guys, vote on the poll we got going in the chat. I asked the question, is Trump doing what he promised?
The big news of this morning.
We got 13 votes so far.
Alien
69% say yes, Trump
Act,
is
so
doing what he
wartime
promised he would do,
authority, a law signed
and
by John
31%
Adams
say
in
no, he is
1798
not doing what he
to
promised.
deport undocumented Venezuelans. That the
So,
administration
vote on that
say,
poll we got going.
Are dangerous individuals with ties to the gang trend Aragua. That gang is obviously associated with a lot of crime, human trafficking, drug dealing, theft, shootings, including in your state of Texas, right outside of your congressional district. Do you agree with this? And if not, what's your issue with the U.S. using any tool at its disposal to remove undocumented violent people from this country?
Well, my argument is that we already have tools that are available to remove undocumented violent people from our country. And so the idea that you want to go into a zombie law, this is kind of like what we saw in Arizona when they decided to revive a zombie law around abortion. It is the fact that we can't trust this administration to actually use a scalpel, but instead they love to use a butcher knife on things. And so giving them this wide latitude to just kind of go across and just claim that anybody is anything is wrong. And so we do have courts, we do have processes, we do have laws, and we should just go ahead and use those. There's a reason that nobody else has decided to go back until into Adams' times in order to try to find ways to make sure that we can keep our country safe.
Trump gets stuff done, and Biden didn't. The whole reason we're having these issues is because Biden let everybody come into our country. We wouldn't have had to deport all these people if Biden hadn't welcomed them in. It's that simple. Biden left us a big mess, and now Trump has to clean it up. And now the Democrats are mad that we have to use a little bit of elbow grease, some soap and water, some bleach to get stuff clean. They're like, how dare they try to clean up the streets? How dare they try to deport criminals that are killing Americans? Stupid. It's stupid. What else we got on CNN? What else has CNN been up to lately? What else we got? But Doge said they saved $8 billion when it was really only $8 million. I mean, $8 million is still a lot. I believe I believe Doge has a website where it goes line by line on departments and like stuff they've cut, and you can see it. I think they're pretty transparent. What else we got? Trump's how Doge cuts may affect your summer vacation. Okay. Trump imposes sweeping 25% steel and aluminum tariffs.
Breaking overnight, President Trump enacting
this was 4 days ago, I believe.
Steel and aluminum, 25%. Europeans are retaliating in a major way. And this morning, the huge concern is American consumers who are caught in the middle of all this and could soon be paying the price literally. let's walk you through this really quick. Overnight, the president slaps 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports from all countries. And just a few hours later, Europe's remarkable retaliation, $28 billion worth of tariffs they now have imposed on U.S. goods going into their countries. Bottom line, the uncertainty everyone was already feeling just got upstaged by this word. Unjustified. That is how the EU.
So do Democrats just think we should let people keep ripping us off?
Australia are feeling about Trump's actions.
It's like that's how it always was.
US
We're just gonna let people rip us off and do nothing because we're America.
Everyone is keeping a very close eye on futures, of course, and preparing for what is to come with the markets when they open very soon after President Trump's latest round of tariffs kicked in at midnight. And across the board, 25%.
I think it's going to bring jobs back to America because, it's going to be cheaper to make things in America because they're not going to have to go through a 25% tariff or higher to make things out of America to ship it in. You just bring your company here, bring your factory here, make it in America, sell it to Americans, and boom.
She is here with a look
there you
at all
go.
this.
We just created jobs.
Well, this trade
We have
war
more
just
products
went
made here.
global. The 25%
We're less reliant on other
tariffs
countries.
Aluminum and steel coming.
What's
into
wrong with
country
that?
Took effect at midnight, and as you mentioned, so many
And we have that
things
reciprocal
are made with steel and
tariff
aluminum.
plan
And if you
now.
just
So,
look
like,
at all
if
the
a country
countries that we
charges us
import
200
steel and aluminum from,
for like,
I mean, there they
I don't
are,
know,
and that is a big, big
let's
number.
say Pokemon cards.
Point out that
If they charge us
prices
a
of
200% tariff on
those steel
Pokemon
and
cards,
aluminum imports
then
will
we're going to
rise,
charge them
will
a
have an
200%
impact on
tariff on
US steel
Pokemon
and
cards.
aluminum
Easy.
prices. Already
If
in
you
the
don't want to
past
get
2
charged,
months,
don't charge
steel
us.
Up 30%, aluminum up 15%. And this is critical, obviously, for American
It's called fair trade.
consumers because, as you mentioned, cars,
We're trying to make it fair.
appliances,
We're
medical
done being ripped
devices
off. It's
are
that
going
simple.
to see the impact of these tariffs eventually.
If I got to pay
We
more
heard
money
from,
for stuff
Commerce
that's made here in
Secretary
America, I'm
Howard
fine with
Lutnick
that.
Last night, he talked about what he thought tariffs meant for the economy.
It
Take a
might get
listen.
worse before it gets better. You know?
Will these policies be worth it if they lead to a recession, even a short-term recession?
These policies are the most.
We were in a recession during Biden.
America has ever had.
So
The news media just wouldn't call it a recession, but we were in a recession.
The only reason there could
And now that
possibly
Trump's in
be a
office, they're
recession
like, oh,
is because
it's a
of the
recession.
Biden nonsense that we had to live with.
It's like Democrats didn't realize prices were
Goldman
absurd
Sachs
during
suggests
Biden.
up their forecast
And
on
then
a
the
recession
very
to
same day Trump
20%
gets in,
from
they're like,
15%.
oh, prices are so
Odds are
high.
still relatively low,
Trump's only been
according to
on
them, but
office
people
one
are
day.
talking about this,
He
what
said he was
this
going to
means
fix
the
it.
overall economy.
He made it worse. No.
Futures this morning
No.
slightly up. They could just be waiting to see
Stupid.
what happens today. A little bit of a recovery from
Yesterday, I think futures were up too, right?
I was going to say, in the morning they were up, and that obviously changed throughout the day. And if we have it here, it's just an.
Well, thing is, if we don't do something, we're not going to have a country
in the
anymore.
First term and the second term with Trump, we may not have that, but essentially. Markets were up. There
Like if somebody gets shot, you got to take the bullet out, and then you got to stop the bleeding.
Term. You can see it right down there on the left-hand side of your screen. Markets have turned down just in the first 6 weeks.
You can't just slap a Band-Aid on it and expect it to stop.
Many more years.
You got to go in there with surgery, take out the bullet,
the really big
stitch it up,
difference in what is happening in the first
stop the
couple
bleeding.
weeks of his administration.
It might be messy, but you just can't put a little Band-Aid on it. Pretend it didn't happen.
In so little time. The EU, as we know, just reciprocated against us $28 billion worth of goods now taxed because of these aluminum and steel tariffs.
CNN's Matt Egan is joining me now.
We're already the wealthiest country in the world. Who are we competing against? You know how much debt we have? We're now spending more on our debt, managing our debt,
that's true. I mean,
than we are on our
another
entire
day,
military
another tariff
per
hike
year.
from the president. The goal
Just the
here is
interest
to
from
try
our
to
debt.
level the playing
We're
field
spending
in
more on
global
interest
trade. The
than we
problem,
are on our
though, is that
military.
some experts are warning it could backfire.
That's not a
because
good thing.
Steel and aluminum
That's
are
not good.
critical inputs, right? They are used to make everything from.
That's what
medical
happens when you just
devices
print
and
money. When Biden kept printing money, giving it to Ukraine, other places,
cars. Remember,
instead of like actually trying to
cars, they
solve
have
the problem, bringing
hundreds,
jobs
they
back
have
to
a
America,
lot
making
of
stuff
steel
here,
and aluminum
trying to
in
figure
them,
this
right? And
out.
car prices, they're
It's
already
like, no, we're just going to
basically
print
at
more
record
money.
highs, so
We're
it's
just going to print
hard
more.
see how
We don't care.
Making a key input more
And now Trump's
expensive
having
with
to
the
fix the
25%
problems
tariff is going to
that
help
Biden
things here.
caused. And it wasn't just
Experts are
Biden.
warning that, yes,
You know, it's
this
been
could
going on for a long
backfire
time.
on not
There's
just
been a lot of
consumers, but
wasteful
also
spending for
on
a very long
workers.
time. And now
I think
Elon
Keith
Musk and
Snyder, he's
Doge
a
are going in
professor
there,
at
actually
Wharton,
shining a
where the
spotlight on
president went to
things and being
school,
like,
and he
we're
said,
actually spending money on this,
is
this, and
not
this.
going
Do we
to
actually
help
need this program? Do
manufacturing.
we actually
It
need
will
this many people to
hurt
run this department?
manufacturing. Even Alcoa, one of the biggest
And all the people that are
aluminum
getting
makers in the
fired,
United
they're getting
States
like
has
8 months
warned
severance
these
pay.
tariffs
So they're getting
could
paid for
kill
8 months. They have 8 months to go find another
American
job.
jobs.
It's not like we're just
Also
throwing
the
them out on the
risk
street.
That it ignites a global trade war. The
Like, they're
US
still getting
imports
paid for 8 months.
A lot of steel and aluminum each year. A lot of it from Canada.
But during
but also
COVID,
Mexico,
like when
China,
people didn't want to get the
UAE,
shot,
Brazil,
the COVID
South
shot,
Korea. Now
they got
these
fired
countries have to
immediately.
decide
You know, they
how
got
are
thrown out of the
they
military.
going
No
to
severance pay,
respond.
no nothing.
The European Union not
But, oh, we
wasting
want to
any
save
time
money
here.
for the
They
country,
immediately
and we're
announced
giving them 8 months severance pay, and
retaliatory
that's a
tariffs
bad.
on items that
It's
are
stupid.
made in America.
It's stupid.
Including, we've seen bourbon, peanut butter, jeans, boats,
A lot of debt is
motorbikes,
from
all
military
of them,
contract
$28
spending that
billion
doesn't
of
get
US
audited.
face
Fun fact, since we started
retaliatory
auditing
tariffs. So
military
the EU
spending, they haven't
tariffs, they
passed the
don't
audit
kick in
once.
until
I
next
mean, yeah,
month.
military
So that
needs to be
leaves some
audited.
time for
The
some
Pentagon,
negotiation,
every
of course.
department.
But
There's
if
wasteful
they do
spending
kick
everywhere.
in, this
Department of
could hurt
Education,
US
everything.
workers in these sectors because the stuff that they make just got more expensive.
You know, Trump has been saying, look, there is pain. And
You sound like you're in a
there's
cult,
gonna be
dude.
disruption that's going to happen, but eventually this is going
I mean,
to be
you can
good.
think what
The
you want to
question is
think, man.
How long Americans
I'm
will
all
be
for
able
common
to
sense.
shoulder this pain. We will have to wait and see, and we are waiting for the markets right now. Things looking slightly up, but nothing like what happened with the downturn yesterday.
Yeah,
right?
slightly up after some days of really steep losses.
All right.
Like,
Thank
yeah,
you
it
so
sucks
much.
that
Wait
people
for the
have
bell
to lose
ring.
their job.
And as the president's sweeping tariffs
But if,
on
like,
foreign steel
5
and
people
aluminum
can do
will
the
likely
job of
be
30
adding
people,
even more pressure on what's been a week
why are
up
we keeping
in
all
US
those
stocks
people?
plunging. The Wall Street Journal's editorial board continues to call out
You
President
know,
Trump,
if you have a business, which
in a
essentially
way really that
America
only
is
the
a
Wall Street Journal
business,
can, writing
if you have all these
this
people that are
in
just
part,
sitting
the trouble
around,
with trade
twiddling their
wars
fingers,
is
not
that
showing up to
once
work,
they begin, they can quickly escalate
when
and get out of
5 people
control.
can do the
All
job
more
of all
so
those other
when
people, why are we
politicians
keeping
nearing
those
an
other
election
people?
campaign, as
Who is
Canada
it
now
helping?
is, or when Mr. Trump
It's
behaves
stupid.
as if his manhood is
If you were the person
implicated
running that
because a
business, you'd be
foreign
like, we're
nation
going to
won't take
get
his
rid of all these
nasty
other
border
people.
taxes
We're going to
lying
keep the
down.
people that can do the
Who said
job,
from the
and we're going to save a
beginning
lot
that
of
this
money
North
so we can
American trade
actually
war
help
is
this
the
business
dumbest in
grow and not
history,
go bankrupt
and
in a
we were
year.
being kind. That's
How
from
is
the
that
Wall
being
Street
in a
Journal.
cult?
Joining
That's
us
just
right now
common
is
sense,
Democratic
bro.
Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. There's
If
that
you have like
side of
credit
it,
card debt,
Senator.
you ask
But
yourself,
then
how
you
can I
have
stop
the
spending?
iron- the
Maybe I go
iron
out to
steel
eat
industry,
less.
aluminum steel industry in
Maybe
the
I
United
don't
States,
buy a
and
new
they
car.
like what
Maybe
they're
I buy
seeing here.
an
A
older
trade war
car
calls
so
these
my monthly
tariffs
payments are less.
Very effective. The
You
head of
find
the
out ways
American
to save
Iron
money.
Steel Institute
That's what we're doing.
Saying that things
We're
would
cutting
be,
spending.
without those
Unfortunately, we have to
tariffs,
fire some people.
Much worse for the
It's common
industry.
sense.
So
You don't just
what
keep
say
spending
you
money.
about
It's like,
where
well, I
things
got a lot
stand
of credit
today
card
with this
debt.
trade war?
I got a lot of college debt. I can't
This
afford
trade
this. I
war
can't afford this.
threatens not only
Do you go out and get a new job? Do you
global
figure out places where you
trade
can
conflict, but
stop
also
spending as much? Or do you
an
just keep
immediate
spending
recession for the United
and get
States,
more and more in debt?
Higher prices for consumers, not just on cars, but
It's common sense. That's
on
not being in a cult, dude. That is
gasoline
common
and
sense.
Energy, for example, the imports of
And if you think otherwise,
Canadian
then I don't want to see your
electricity,
bank
which
accounts,
are
guys.
About
Okay.
11% of the Northeast supply, and
It's like saying, we don't really
prices
have the
of
money for it.
groceries, food,
But
milk,
I'll just
eggs
charge it. I'll just
will
put it on my
likely
credit card.
rise, and
Who
The
cares?
imminence of a recession may
That's basically what
be
the previous administration
less
did.
painful for the billionaires and for the Secretary
Trump's
of
not that way.
Commerce,
Trump's a
that's no
businessman.
thing, but it will affect average, everyday Americans.
I mean, a
So
poor
the
college student,
pain
my bank account
is
isn't
going to be
really
felt
that interesting. Yeah.
nationwide, and it's
But you save
avoidable.
money where you can.
The last time
right?
we
You're not out there
tried one
buying a
of these major
Ferrari.
trade wars, I think under
Right?
President McKinley, it proved to be a disaster, and he concluded it was a mistake.
Well, the president was asked about the immediate impacts that we've seen, which is this massive sell-off we've seen in U.S. stocks and continued fears about a recession. He hasn't answered the questions around it.
Yeah, I drive a car
How
from
for you what President Trump said yesterday?
from 2001. I drive a Honda from 2001
and your tariff policies
with
right now,
210,000 miles on it.
turmoil we're seeing this week?
Biden gave us a horrible economy. He gave us horrible inflation. And I think the market was going to go very, very bad.
Nice.
When does this become the Trump economy? He is just 6 weeks in. Can he argue this still is not his to own?
The economy under Joe Biden was chugging along pretty well, and what Donald Trump is doing now is potentially going to disrupt disastrously a success story for America. And that's why business executives are expressing alarm. The Wall Street Street Journal is calling it the dumbest thing they've seen.
We'll see.
And why he's doing it is really a mystery. He should be building on this economy, not trying to undermine and destroy it.
People said the same thing when Elon Musk bought Twitter, and he like cut like 75% of the workforce, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna fail. He's firing all these people."
Are standing in the world because nobody can figure out.
They didn't need all that people to make Twitter run, and now it runs better than it did.
Back and forth, tariffs one day withdrawn or delayed the next. creates an uncertainty which itself undermines the economy.
Do you know what I always find confusing? When two sides discuss how the economy is doing, they usually just say it's good or bad without explaining why either way. True. True. But I honestly think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Unfortunately, that's just how things are sometimes. Like, you can say things are going great and just throw a Band-Aid on it and be like, look, no bullet hole anymore. There's nothing to see here. Or you can actually go in, get the bullet out, stitch up the wound, fix the problem, and it's going to be messy. But in the long run, it's going to be better for the country. Or you can keep just throwing another Band-Aid, throwing another Band-Aid, throwing another Band-Aid, saying, oh, it looks fine, nothing to see here, and just keep going, and then suddenly you're dead. Or you can go and actually stop the bleeding, and you're better for the long run. And that's what I think Trump's trying to do. And you guys might be like, oh, you're just a Trump supporter. You think everything Trump does is great, blah, 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 blah. When Biden was in office, I wanted Biden to do a good job too. You know, I wasn't happy Biden won, but I'm like, okay, Biden's the president. I hope he does a phenomenal job. I hope I'm wrong about everything. I hope he just makes the economy great. I hope all these wars stop. I hope he keeps, the border secure. I wanted Biden to be an amazing president. I'm like, that's what we got right now. That's what we're dealing with. Biden is the president. It's not Trump. Kind of sucks, but Biden's the president. I can cry about it, or I can hope that Biden does a good job. We had him for 4 years. He didn't do a great job. And now Trump's back in. So I'm going to hope the same thing, that Trump does a good job, that Trump actually follows through with what he said, keeps his promises. And so far, from what I've seen, he's been keeping his promises. He's been sealing up the border. He's been working on the economy. He's been trying to bring jobs back to America. He's trying to stop wars that are going on. So I think that's a good thing. I wanted Biden to be a good president. I don't want people to fail, because if the president fails and their administration fails, the country fails. And that's just bad for everybody. So I don't know why Democrats are like just trying to hope that Trump fails and not make America great again and just call him a Nazi and stuff. Why aren't they getting behind the president and be like, okay, we had our guy for 4 years. You guys got your guy for 4 years. Let's get behind him. Let's try to do the best we can to work together to get stuff done. But it's like, nope, he's a racist. He's a Nazi. Elon Musk is a Nazi. Like, it's stupid. It's like they want America to fail because their guy didn't win. Like, who cares? Who cares? We had to suck it up for 4 years. You guys can suck it up for 4 years. Trump's done more in like 53 days than Biden did in his entire 4 years. It's stupid. So what else we got? Let's go back to Fox. I can't watch CNN anymore. It's sad. A lot of negative Nancy's over there at CNN. What else we got? SpaceX crew docks at ISS to relieve NASA astronauts. So did we get the astronauts back?
In here too, live now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us just past 4:30 on the East Coast as we're covering the top stories of the day. And of course, one of the most impressive stories over the last several days has been the Crew 10 mission to the International Station. And
so I think we're getting those astronauts that were stranded back. I think NASA tried to do it and they failed. So Trump's like, Elon, go save them. Go get them off that space station.
Of that Crew 10 mission arriving at the International
and now we're actually getting
Space
them back,
Station,
getting things done.
Astronauts there as they will relieve several of them already aboard the International Space Station. Let's bring into the conversation right now from the Space Coast. As we're just plus 45 hours or so since that launch on Friday by
I think
Fox
America
News' Jonathan Siri. Jonathan,
and just the world in
so
general should come together and be like, hey, we got the astronauts that were stranded in space back. We're getting them back. That should be like, that should be some kudos given. That's a good thing. But some Democrats are going to be like, oh, that's bad. Elon Musk did it. Elon's a Nazi. He only did that to make himself look good. So people don't know he's a Nazi. Blah, blah, blah. Like, Jesus, guys. Get over it. we're getting the astronauts back, and they can go home and see their families. That's not a bad thing.
Anywhere from 6 hours to 47 hours. It all depends on the location of the International Space Station relative.
If you're just popping in, guys, we were watching random CNN
sites in the Gulf of Mexico.
videos.
This time of year, as you can see,
We were watching the press secretary have her presser. That was early on in the video. If you want to go back and watch that, just rewind the video. It was like, it wasn't very long. It was like maybe 20 minutes. And since then, we've just been jumping around to different news stories that are happening around the world. So if you're watching live, hit that thumbs up button if you want to see more content like this on the channel, and definitely
That's so
subscribe.
Very interesting. A lot has changed. This was only supposed to be about a week and a half for Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams aboard the International Space Station. That extended well beyond 6 months, 8 months, 9 months. Can you take me through?
And there's a lot of corrupt politicians out there. Don't get me wrong, guys. Like, I don't know how Nancy Pelosi got so rich. Like, Nancy Pelosi seems to be able to pick stocks in the stock market better than professionals. She does 80% better than professionals that do it for a living. It's almost like she knows what stocks are going to go up and what stocks are going to go down.
Know each other. They work
kind of
together.
interesting.
Some have served together on previous missions, and so it's a wonderful reunion, especially.
And it's not just Nancy Pelosi. I'm sure it's people on both sides that are like that know what's going on in companies before it's going to happen, and then they buy stock or sell stock before certain laws get passed. I think you should just ban everybody in Congress from being able to buy stocks.
Understand this better before humans are able to go to Mars, which is a huge ambition for SpaceX CEO Elon Musk. But also, they do a lot of medical research into Parkinson's disease, cancer, because when you're in microgravity, biological systems, they tend to age much faster. And so you can watch things develop much faster than you would on a laboratory on the ground. And so there's a lot of cutting edge research that will likely lead to additional medications, Parkinson's treatments, other neurodegenerative
So we're getting those astronauts back. That's good.
Disorders, as well as cancer treatments, but also better preparing.
Okay, so what else we got? What's happening live right now? Are they still on the press briefing? Are they just replaying it?
It's become untenable,
No, they're talking about different things. Okay, let's listen in on this.
Kind of a regard. It's an unfortunate framework of war.
State Department briefing on deportations, Ukraine, and more.
But of course, we lament, I think, this country of all countries, and what we've done and what we've accomplished. We lament the loss of life. That's the aspect. Because I think this is part of the real story. All of the aspects of what the Trump administration, what Secretary Rubio, and everyone now in this new administration is focused on, and maybe it surprised people, it shouldn't have, is peace. Is to stop.
We want
the
peace.
slaughter of people.
We want peace,
the
guys.
Chaos
Peace.
that reigns through certain regions, is to make sure, especially with certainly Ukraine and Russia, is to make sure in every place where there's conflict, that the people that are alive today might be alive tomorrow, and it's imperfect. It's not something that any of us can sometimes predict the end result of. But this is an administration and a president and a Secretary of State who's made it clear.
From what I heard, Trump wants to not have anyone under $150,000 per year be taxed. Like, he just wants to get rid of taxes entirely. I think he said he wants to balance the budget first, and then if that happens, he wants to make that happen.
Yes, sir. You've been waiting patiently.
Two quick questions on the Palestinian issue.
But he does want to lower taxes. He lowered taxes during his first term. He said he wants to lower them even more his second term. So we'll see what happens.
Very dire. I was wondering if you are really concerned about this, especially, this coincided with the beginning of Ramadan as well.
We'll see what happens.
And water and so on.
But the stock market, it fluctuates, When it goes down, it's just a better buying opportunity for people that can afford it. You buy stocks when they're low, sell when they're high.
For the horrible suffering.
So if the stock market crashes, you get some discounts. Obviously, it doesn't always work that way because of if people are retiring, obviously they're going to have to start pulling money out. And if the stock market is low, they're going to get less money. So I get it. But, we got to do something because we can't keep going the way we've been going.
when it comes to the nature
when
of
our
what,
debt is more than we spend on the
what
military,
causes
like
worked
just the
on, and
interest
what
on our
all of
debt,
us still
it's
focus on is, in fact,
that's a
what your
problem.
concern is.
We just can't keep printing
Making
money.
sure that there's a situation on the
Oh,
ground
there we go.
that allows food to get to the people who need it, that allows aid to move through to the people who have been suffering because of the choices that Hamas
Yeah, I already did my
has made
taxes.
throughout the years. And that is what we continue
I tried to do it
work on.
early.
So everyone
I ended up getting
certainly
some money back because I guess I overpaid because I was taking like an extra $100 out of my paycheck just because I wanted to make sure I was below the threshold where I needed to be. So I ended up getting some money back. That money I got back, I ended up spending on my car because my car needed like new shocks and new struts or something. So that money basically is gone now. But, you know, it is what it is. We do what we can with what we got.
In this department connected with the new
Corporate
Syrian
taxes was 33%.
Do you have any engagement with them?
You know, again, when it comes to diplomatic engagements, situations as fluid and as situational. Like
Oh, yeah, it's
that
also
one,
St.
that's not
Patty's
something
Day.
I'm
I
able to
forgot,
answer.
guys. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I didn't wear
See what we can
green.
do when it comes to the specifics
Does that mean
of
people
what
got to
you
pinch
asked
me?
for. Yes.
I forgot it was St. Patty's
I have
Day.
another question on Iraq.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm actually part
administration,
Irish.
Secretary Rubio himself has called the Iraqi
Believe it or
government
not.
to resume the
But yeah, I don't think I have anything
on
that's
oil
green.
export and solve the U.S. oil companies' issues
I guess this
that are
is
working
kind of
with
green.
Iraq.
I think it's like alternating colors. There might be some green in
What's
there.
the U.S. view on that?
But happy St. Patty's Day, everybody.
Urging the Iraqi government to resume the oil export.
Again, I'm not at this press briefing.
So far
I'm
we
not
have
going to
so far we have
international
15 votes in the little poll we got going on in the chat. I asked, is Trump doing what he promised? 67% of you that voted say yes, he is, and 33% say no, he is not. So vote on that poll in the chat, guys. 15 votes so far. It was 91%. In the 50s, few people pay that much, though, because of exemptions, and it was set just shy of 500,000 US dollars.
These sanctions as a,
Interesting.
significant barrier to stabilizing and rebuilding the country. Is the administration considering removing or maybe easing these sanctions?
I need to make some Hot Pockets, guys. I got Hot Pockets in my fridge. They're expired.
Regarding Syria. And the fact
I bought them from the dollar store because they were like about to expire. So I bought like
these are things that would be negotiations
2
that would
boxes
have to
full
be
of them.
contemplated, and I'm not going to
And
do
now
that
they're
right
expired,
now.
but they're in my
This
freezer.
from
So I'm hoping they're
this
still good.
podium.
I don't know.
Yes,
They're
sir.
probably expired by like 4 months. I've been eating them off and on.
Depends on what the question is, but go for it.
Probably not a good idea, but
Lebanese citizen who was a doctor at Brown University.
I mean, they've been in the freezer, right?
To elaborate why?
That, I would say, when it comes to that kind of action on everything we might discuss, that's the Department of Homeland Security. So that would be them.
And on violence, escalating violence in the West Bank, I guess, are there any concerns at the State Department over what we're seeing in terms of Israeli actions in the north, in Jenin, in Tulkarm?
Well, the United States position, certainly the State Department.
So this is Tammy Bruce that's talking. I guess she is a State Department spokesperson.
Certain security concerns that they have, and they're taking.
And then Trump is supposed to talk to Putin on Tuesday. I guess it's going to be like over a phone call. I don't think that's going to be like a live broadcasted phone call. It's probably going to be like a behind closed doors phone call. They might like maybe release some parts of it, maybe. I doubt it. But that's kind of a conversation you want to have, like not in front of the press. You know.
2-minute break. More top headlines after this.
And I guess the stock market is up a little bit during St. Patty's Day, so that's cool. We're on a commercial break. Okay, so they're on a commercial break. If you adjust for inflation, 500,000 US is roughly 6.5 million. That's a lot. Wait, what was that? Live St. Patrick's Parade in New York City. Trump Russia set to discuss peace deal. Yeah, the press briefing today was just under 30 minutes, so it wasn't super long. Full Doge hearing on Elon's role in White House with President Trump. Committee hearing on Doge. That was what, 5 days ago? So a heavy tax on every dollar past 5 million, you might be able to emulate the Great Compression. 8 days ago, InfoWars. Disturbing story, breaking news police. I know there's been a lot of fires going on, a lot of tornadoes going on, storms going on. What up, Kenzie? And shout out to everybody that's left comments. Even if I disagree or agree with you, I'm glad you're leaving comments and giving feedback. I like reading people's opinions and perspectives. That's why I do these live streams. Is I just like to get different points of view. I don't think I'm right about everything. I know there's a lot about politics and just the world in general that I don't know. I don't claim to be some expert. I just like have some opinions that, you know, and just the way you guys are voicing your opinions in chat, I voice my opinions. Some of them might be a little bit out there, but you know, that's why that's what makes America great, is the ability to just have conversations, and free speech is important. That's why I think when Elon Musk bought Twitter, that was a big thing, because I feel like a lot of people's voices were getting silenced. And Twitter is like one of the few places on the internet where you can actually have relatively free speech. Like, obviously there's some like caveats of what you can't say. You can't call for violence and stuff, which I think is a good thing. You don't want to have, you know, platforms that allow that. But for the most part, it's you know, free speech on Twitter is pretty free, and I know Facebook has kind of followed their Twitter's lead, and now they're becoming more focused on free speech and not just thought policing everybody. So I think it's a good thing, because you know, there's some countries out there that, like, if you say something on a website, they can come to your door and arrest you just by disagreeing with like what the main narrative is, or like calling your president stupid or an idiot. You could get arrested for that in some places, you know. So we have it pretty good here in America, with a lot of things. Like, it's not perfect, but it's definitely a lot better than most places out there. Well, from a lot of places out there, we have it pretty good here. What else we got here? I'm just looking at the different news stories. I view this as cracking a beer at the pub and chatting about the news. True story, man. The name calling on both sides only pushes us further away. At the end of the day, we all just want America to be the best it can be. I don't disagree with conservatives or Democrats about that. I think Democrats and like Republicans, conservatives, liberals, I think we can agree on certain things, and there's other stuff that we just don't agree on. But that doesn't mean we can't like have conversations, you know? I dated a liberal for like 3 years, and we got along for the most part. So, you know, I don't try to judge people for their political views. I mean, I might judge you, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to have a conversation with you, unless you're just like in my face calling me a Nazi, you know, and trying to hit me with a sign or something. But other than that, I'm open to having conversations. What about what is Right Side Broadcasting doing? What are they streaming right now? Looks like a little commercial. Awaiting Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell to hold a press briefing. Interesting. So I guess the video on the right is the military putting up razor wire and stuff at the border. Getting stuff done.
And of course, the outstanding work of our Marines, our United States Army Corps of Engineers, and Border Patrol agents, all working in Secretary.
I suppose, Kenzie.
Hegseth, someone who's been to the border multiple times now, much more than the borders are. Former Vice President Kamala Harris during her tenure, and how exciting! Just a couple of days ago now, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem explaining that 7 more miles of wall will be
We just put up 7 more miles?
Brought about over the course
Or
of
we're
the
putting up
next
7 more miles of border
we know
wall.
that
Nice.
Crossings have been way down. I mean, it's almost a completely
way down.
secure
Border
cutoff
crossings
border.
are
You just
way
don't see,
down.
Getaways, you don't see people attempting to go over that. And we were just talking off air. What if you tried to get over that 10 to 13 foot hump, and then on the other side, really sharp barbed wire. Not a good idea.
And on top of that, a military right there reinforcing all of that. So, yeah, it's great to see that video. It really just shows the actions speaking louder than the words.
But guys, I'm getting a phone call from somebody, so I better wrap up the stream. But thank you guys for watching the video. I'm still in my pajamas. I got to get ready for the day, eat some breakfast / lunch. Probably maybe go out, ride a bike or something. Get out in the world. Get some sunlight, you know. But thank you guys for popping in. If you enjoyed the video and if you want to see more like this, hit that thumbs up button. Share my channel with a friend. I play a lot of video games. I do political streams like this. I react to what's going on in the world. I think it's just kind of cool to see what's happening out there and to have conversations with like-minded individuals and people that don't necessarily agree with my points of view. I think it's good. But thank you guys for popping in, and yeah, subscribe if you want to see more of my content. Thanks for voting on the poll. Thanks for sharing the video, liking the video, and I will catch you guys in the next stream. Until then, my name is Adam, and remember, keep common game on. Toodles.
And gold and silver has truly stood the test of time.
Free gold guide.